Literally, I'm getting chills thinking about that. I will never forget this for the rest of my life.
You're in violation of curfew. This is an unlawful assembly.
Look it! Look it!
As I recall, I was one of the first journalists to cover events related to this Breonna Taylor shooting. It was maybe about a week after she was killed that the family had a vigil near the police department. And I remember as I showed up, people started to sprinkle in a little bit. And ultimately, I think around 70 people participated in this balloon release, and some people made remarks, particularly her aunt, Bianca Austin, made remarks, very poignant.
And we just want to thank y'all for her support. And I want y'all to know Breonna loved everybody. She loved everybody, and she is the reason why we all here. She was the glue that brought everybody together. She was the baby of the family. And for us to just have to find that strength to move on without her is just going to be so hard.
Well, I remember pretty vividly, it was a Thursday night, it was May 28th, and I had been filling in on the photo desk and had really had a long week and was hoping to sit down and have a bite of dinner with my girlfriend. It was about 7 o'clock, and my phone rang, and it was one of the editors saying there's a large group that had begun to gather at Jefferson Square. When I got down on site at Jefferson Square Park, I was the first one on staff who got down to that protest. I was surprised. It was not like anything I had seen before. There were a lot of people, and I immediately began making phone calls to get some additional photographers on site.
I remember I was finishing out my shift on May 28 when I got the call that a bunch of people were downtown and they were saying Breonna Taylor's name and they were going to march through downtown. And I went down there and we were out for hours and hours and hours and walked all around downtown. And I don't think it hit me that night that it would still be going on, months later, and it would grow into this national rallying cry.
Probably the most intense moment that I experienced was the first night. I was there at Metro Hall, and the protesters were trying to dump over a police van, and they'd just about gotten it turned over when shots rang out.
Day one was pretty intense. I heard, I was trying to find people to interview because we were doing a Facebook Live, and then all I heard was a gunshot, and then you just see people running, because obviously it's your first reaction to do that. That was by far the most intense thing I've covered in the protest, because it's just a lot of people running, trying to get to safety, not knowing what's going on, not knowing who shot the gunshot, really not really trying to think of where you are, just trying to get away from where you currently were. You see people, you're running and people are just running over each other, trying to get out. And it was something that stuck in my memory for a little while after that. But yeah, it's just, I don't know how it gets more intense than that. And that first day was a rough one to start it off.
The morning after David McAtee was killed, I was down there early to cover basically the scene. I was there when LMPD was securing the scene, And little by little, more and more people showed up. And I remember one gentleman, Frank Wilson, I think it's his name, he was very angry. He was yelling across the street at the police. He was very upset because he was a friend of David McAtee. And there was this one police officer, an LMPD officer, Christian Lewis, who was there, and he's a black police officer. But you could tell a lot of people were directing their anger right at him. And then Frank came over there to Christian, and they hugged. And I wasn't really expecting that. I don't think a lot of people were. But Christian and Frank both had tears in their eyes when they hugged. And I guess that was probably one of the moments that really stuck out to me, just to see the interaction between these two gentlemen.
It was after David McAtee, the barbecue man, when he was shot and killed. That next day, it was on that Monday, they went out in front of Dino's Market right next to where his little restaurant was, where he would have his barbecue for people. They were out there. But the moment that stood out for me was people were out there, they were yelling, they were chanting, some music was played and all that. But then someone said, "Stop, his mother is here." And so his mother and some of the other relatives were going to view the body, and all of a sudden it was dead silent. I saw people, everybody out there put their fist in the air, and there was one woman in particular, she started singing Amazing Grace. And literally, I'm getting chills thinking about that. And she just sung just like the chorus of Amazing Grace, and everybody didn't say a word. And all you hear is that one woman doing that. And I'll be honest, I know I'm supposed to be a reporter, supposed to be neutral, down the middle, but I started crying. Just a moment that I've never experienced before. And just to see, like I said, a grieving family and a mother who is going to see her son, and all of these people are just dead silent, standing in unison with fists in the air while Amazing Grace is sung on a megaphone. I will never forget that for the rest of my life.
It was so tragic and didn't need to happen. I'm Tyler's godfather. Tyler's dad is my first cousin. His name is Chuck. My father was Chuck's godfather. Chuck was my godfather. I was Tyler's godfather, and Tyler was my daughter's godfather. We had kept this string going for quite a few years.
First of all, thank you very much for coming. This is really tough for me and my family. One thing I was really proud of my son more than anything is he had good friends of all colors. He also felt that, like everything else in the world, 90% of the people are good people, no matter what race, no matter what color.
And the night that Tyler was shot, we were at home and watching everything going on, and I was following what the live streamers had done in trying to capture the shooting, and having no idea that Tyler was involved in any way. It was just terribly shocking, as you might guess.
The evolution of the protests have been the most interesting thing. They haven't stayed just on police brutality.
There's a lot of pushing for changing the landscape of who's in office in the city and in the state. So one of the biggest things I think I hear from protesters is changing the people in office and getting people in office who understand their views.
They want opportunities just like anyone else has, and they don't feel like they've received them for so long that they are starting to demand them now.
People want full citizenship, full respect, the ability to have the same privileges and rights and behaviors that others have.
I think they want answers, they want change, and I don't know that it will stop until somebody says, I'm willing to listen, I'm willing to consider large-scale reforms that are going to go on for generations in the future, you know.
It's really interesting to me that people are listening and people are making their voices heard, and I am just interested in seeing where that goes from here and how the city continues to change based on Breonna Taylor's life and legacy and based on the legacy of this protest movement.
Most of them seem to be pretty committed to keeping Breonna Taylor's name at the forefront and in the media, so that there will at some point be some substantial change that comes from all this.
You know, one thing that really hit home for me pretty quickly was that this generation of young people have been through a lot, and especially when it comes to issues about race and police.
I don't know that we need to be back at normal.
They hope that whatever, dialogue happens as we move forward as a city and try to heal and rectify past wrongs is that the young people should be a part of that conversation.
What we have in front of us is an opportunity that's been launched in the first 100 days to have a new conversation in Louisville, to have a conversation about what we can change, to change what normal looks like for a vast majority of Louisvillians who don't look like me.
I have hope that, like I said, change can happen if people continually try to put that action. You say, again, not only talk about it, but walk about it, and that's what I'm seeing.
But there is systemic problems in the way that we police the black community, and hopefully that because of what we're seeing right now, that's going to change.
There's a lot of healing and, reconciliation that has to be done after, the last 100 days that we've seen in Louisville.
But I don't think you're going to overnight see this overhaul of the system. I think there are too many people who are so embedded in the way that things are now and are comfortable with the way things are now. Whether that's how police behave in African American communities or with African Americans, whether that's the food desert situation. I think that there are people who benefit financially and otherwise from the way things are currently. So I'll wait until I see it. I'm always going to be the more pessimistic and cynical on the cynical side, and if people prove me wrong, I'm happy about that.
I do think that we need to focus more on the good that is coming from this. I think a lot of people see this as a very historic moment that is going to produce change, and I think we tend to focus on the violence and the really shocking, intense situations that have happened, and I think we need to delve deeper into the people who are making true change that will benefit everyone.
It's important for us to capture all these events because of the historic nature of it. I am also, at the same time, given a little hope that maybe things are being pushed along a little bit more so that my nieces will live in a better world than I lived in. I certainly live in a better world than my parents lived in, especially coming from Alabama. But there's more work that needs to be done, and there's more progress that needs to be had. So I think that these protests and these movements are helping to move things along towards a more progressive posture.
But the thing I got to come back to every time, and every story I think should come back to, there was a human being who was asleep, who woke up, is not alive anymore and will never be alive. And that at the end of the day is the only thing that honestly matters.